start on three? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. The time is now 1:42 p.m. The regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the El Paso Area Transportation Services and Local Governments Corporation, doing business as the El Paso Transportation Authority, is now in open session. Commissioner Jackie Butler is presiding as the chair of the board, and the following agenda item will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Butler's next agenda item is public comment. No one signed up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for your patience as we work through some technical challenges this afternoon. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize some new additions and members of the board who are joining us for the first time today. Wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please.
I am David Reese, founder of Board Parsons.
You're here on behalf of
the board.
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Daniel Vallejo, I'm the alderman for the town of Flint, representing Flint.
You joined us virtually last term, so thank you very much for being here in person today. Nice to meet you. I think online we have Commissioner Stout, Commissioner David Stout.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Stout, County Commissioner. I represent Precinct 2. Good to be with y'all.
Just joined the board after our bylaws changes from last. So welcome, everybody. Happy to have you here. The first item on the agenda,
We have item 480, present a certificate to TransDev's Employee of the Month for September 2025. That will be presented by Ms. Sylvia Baltasar. I believe she was not able to be here, so we have Ms. Jennifer Garcia.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to present the Employee of the Month, which is Arazali. She's been with us for, she was one of the new hires when we started with our transit service. We have nothing but compliments from our client driver. She's a great leader to the drivers. She's a team player. She shows great expertise in her field. She has no incidents, no accidents. She's just been nothing but great. It's more than 1 year that she's been with us. So I want to recognize her and tell you about it.
thank you, Ms. Martinez. Congratulations. On behalf of the ETA board and TransDev, we wanted to present you with a certificate of appreciation. We're very much. Thank you. That's easy, guys.
Next, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda comprises items 5A through 5E. Are there any items the board would like to pull?
Any questions from the board? I will make a motion to approve.
My second.
So I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Butler and a second by Mr. Ponte. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we can move on to regular agenda. Now we have item 6A, acceptance of the fiscal years 2023 and 2024 on annual audit. Mr. John Endo.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board, I'd like to ask that we delete this item and we'll bring this back before the board in November.
Okay, I'll make a motion to delete.
A motion by Commissioner Butler and a second by Mr. Bishop. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried.
We'll bring 57.
So now we have item 6B, authorize the executive director to execute an agreement with TransDev Services Incorporation for transit operations and maintenance and recommend approval to El Paso County Commissioners Court, subject to legal review and approval. Mr. Jonathan.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, I'm bringing this to your attention for authorization to enter into an agreement with Transdev Services, Inc., pending legal review and approval, as well as recommend this action to El Paso Commissioners Court. On June 2nd of 2025, after deliberations here at this board, the Commissioners Court did award RFP 2502 to First Transit, Inc., which is doing business as Transdev Services, as the highest ranking proposer following the complete evaluation that has been done by the purchasing department as well as the ETA staff. And Transdev is our current operator, and they will continue to provide the management and operations of ETA transit services, which includes Paseo, Access, and Non-Delay under the ETA brand. This new agreement will start November 1 of 2025 and will supersede the current agreement that's in place. The agreement is fully funded, utilizing grants from the Federal Transit Administration plus the local revenues from each of the member agencies participating. We did provide a separate copy of the draft Transdev agreement with all of the appropriate attachments. One of the fundamental changes that have occurred, just as an FYI to the board, since the board discussed this prior to my hiring, is we did some negotiations with Transdev to shift some expenses from Transdev direct to ETA and the county to achieve some cost savings. So ultimately, over the 10-year period, we're saving about $5.4 million. For year one, it's about $485,000. And of those expenses that are being saved, the ETA and the county will be paying for some of those items, which includes fuel, which we're able to get at government pricing, provision of the paratransit software, and then we're still finalizing a lease agreement with Sun Metro so that we would be able to lease the maintenance facility that Transdev is presently using for the next 5 years until we're able to construct and own our own facility. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Sun Metro.
On the lease or on this agreement?
On either. I know that we were in active discussions about, this being a good first step towards collaboration between ETA and Sun Metro. And I think this, since John has come on board, this was one of the first things that he started working on. I think that's the first thing in the process.
Yeah, and then we've been working closely together on a variety of agreements, and hopefully will play out in the next 3 months. So getting that lease executed is certainly one of our top priorities, and keeps ping-ponging between our real estate and legal teams. We should have that pretty short. So. Looks good from where I sit.
I do want to preface that the agreement does allow flexibility for us to add and remove services over the course of the 5 years. So should the board desire for further collaboration with Sun Metro, particularly on the fixed route system, it doesn't preclude us from having that collaboration with Sun Metro after year one of the agreement. And I believe from discussions with Sun Metro, while they're working on building their new maintenance facility and transitioning to their new Sun Metro Rising, in the out years of this contract would be more of an appropriate time frame for us to discuss those type of collaborations if we're going to go down that direction.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Butler and a second by Mr. Eddie Conde. David will say. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We can move on to item 6C. Authorize the executive director to execute an agreement with Move It for Transit app collaboration, subject to legal review and approval, and authorize submission to El Paso County Commissioners Court. Mr. Ando.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. This agreement with Move It is just another way we're striving to improve the passenger experience on ETA transit services. Move It is what is called a mobility as an app service. And with the Move It app, you can basically plan your trips, track buses in real time. And under this new agreement with Transdev, we're going to be adding real-time automatic vehicle locator service. So with them producing what is called a general transit feed specification real time, passengers on all of our routes will now be able to see the buses in motion and actually know when the bus is actually going to come to a bus stop, which is going to make things so much easier for our riders. Future collaborations with Regional Mobility Authority, we can even be able to unlock bicycles if we want to start adding bike share stations throughout various member agency jurisdictions. We're per previous board action, we're finalizing an agreement with Token Transit. So passengers will be able to pay their fare with Token Transit, which will be integrated into this app so that they can also pay their fare through Move It. And then the last piece is we have the Balmanos Van Pool program. Enterprise will integrate with Move It so that people can get connected directly to Enterprise if they want to join a van. So it's just one tool available to passengers to be able to basically do everything they want to do utilizing public transit. The nice thing about Move It is if you also go to other areas across the country, that app will work for other transit systems. It'll work for Sun Metro, it'll work for Roadrunner in Las Cruces, it'll work in California, DC, or Florida. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry. And I should also add the cost is $4,250 for a year for partnering with them in the integration.
What is the startup period for implementation on this?
On board approval and then county commissioners court approval, since it's a three-party agreement, we anticipate we'll have the app fully integrated by December. We've already included our GTFS feed now at no cost, since they are an app integrator, which will take any GTFS feed that's provided to them. But this just goes the step beyond by adding additional services.
I think it's great. I want to make sure that as we roll this out, that there's a communication strategy in this. So I guess that means working with the county.
Yes, Move It will help us in drafting press releases, and our staff internal will be able to handle posting on social media. We'll get flyers on the buses so passengers know that this exists. But yes, we'll definitely have a strategy upon full implementation.
Is John, is Move It, is this agreement just to allow us to connect to Move It as a standalone, or is this customizable, would be cross-branded? What does it look like to the user?
So basically it'll still say Move It on the app, but it'll actually be customizable for when you're in the El Paso area. So it'll show ETA routes, it'll show Sun Metro routes, and then it'll also have all the various integrations that I just talked about.
So there's features you could choose to engage or disengage depending on what's available, or pretty much.
Yeah, basically what's available. I should also add, you could also book Uber trips, Lyft trips with this app as well. So if ETA service is not available, it will show what possible alternatives exist.
Is South Central Regional Transit District also involved?
I believe they have GTFS.
Okay.
So as long as they have GTFS, Move It should be able to ingest it and it'll also show their routes.
Say. Any other questions or comments? I'll second.
Motion to approve by Ms. Cleo and a second by Commissioner Butler. We are now moving on to item 6. Do we have a motion to come? All those in favor say aye. Motion carried. We can now move on to item 60, review of Rio Grande Council of Governments Procurement Policy and Financial and Accounting Task. Mr.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board.
We're good. It keeps opening up for me.
Okay. In the new interlocal agreement with the Rio Grande Council of Governments acting as our administrative and fiscal agent for ETA, we added some language that until this board adopts its own financial and accounting policies as well as a procurement policy, that we would follow Rio Grande Council of Governments when it comes to the expenditures of ETA only expenses. And I want to preface, as you know, when we adopted the budget last month, our budget is multifaceted because as long as the grants are still in the county's name, the county is still fronting the lion's share of ETA's operations with the members contributing the local match. So there's the El Paso County Transit budget, but then there's still an ETA budget for expenses that are being paid for outside of the county grants. So this policy would only apply to the ETA only budget for expenditures outside of the county grants. Their policies do meet federal requirements, particularly 2 CFR 200, since we're getting in the process to use federal funds. So I wanted to attach copies of their policies for this board to be aware of, and then answer any questions that the board may have in relation to their policies and procedures. And Annette and I are happy to help assist with answering any questions if there are any.
And that's intended to go into effect until the next fiscal year.
Going into effect now for fiscal year 26.
So the new bank account will be established as a point.
We anticipate the bank accounts will be established sometime in the next month or two. And then the funds that are currently being held at Rio Grande, they'll just move from their accounts into the ETA account, but Rio Grande will still manage those.
I was looking at the one of the materials in the packet, and it made reference to continue to have the accounts with Wells Fargo, for example, because that apparently who is good right now. But once we move into a separate entity, being a separate entity, what's the probability that we could do get an RFP and get other banks to also submit a proposal to see if they can offer us a better, better service than Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is a good institution, there's no doubt about it. It's nation worldwide, but there's a number of local banks that I think would be interested in applying for that possibility.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely do, especially I anticipate bringing before policies for this board to consider by spring of 26. So with those policies being enacted, yeah, we can definitely look into banking RFP.
Is there a motion?
There's no action. It's just if the board has questions on Rio Grande's policies.
Will this come back for action?
No, because it was already included in the interlocal agreement that the board approved 2 months ago. So I was just wanting to bring this for information purposes.
Adoption of a resolution and authorization of the executive director and Rio Grande Council of Governments to participate in the state of Texas payment and travel card program and Texas Smart Buy program for El Paso Transportation Authority expenditures, and authorize the executive director to make expenditures of up to $5,000 per purchase as allowed within the adopted budget without board of directors approval through the Rio Grande Council of Governments until an El Paso Transportation Authority procurement policy is developed. Mr. Randall?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. This action is multifaceted. As you're aware, there's a lot of cooperative procurements that exist across the state that governmental entities can participate in. So previous board actions, the board authorized us to join the 791 Purchasing Cooperative, which also El Paso County did join as well, which we could procure various transit-related items from the 791 Cooperative. Then the state of Texas has a program called the Texas Smart Buy membership program, which is managed by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. And in order to be able to procure off of state of Texas's cooperative contracts, we would have to join the Texas Smart Buy membership program, which costs $100 per year. Within that program, there is the state of Texas payment and travel card program, which is a purchasing card provided through U.S. Bank and could be used to make purchases in accordance with an established purchasing policy. And as we just talked about in the previous action, our current interlocal agreement with Rio Grande Council of Governments, we're utilizing their policies and procedures until the ETA board adopts their own. We're requesting our ETA's participation in the Texas Smart 5 membership program, one, and then two, upon us getting approved to join that membership program, we would use the state of Texas's cooperative procurement to be able to obtain purchasing cards through U.S. Bank so that we can make purchasing expenditures at up to my proposed limit of $5,000 without board approval, as long as the expense is documented in the adopted budget that the board adopted last month. Just some history on our purchasing under ETA direct expenses. In February of 2025, the ETA Board of Directors authorized the interim transit operations director, as well as the ETA staff, to make purchases up to $1,000 with the ETA's chair concurrence. We're asking to modify that to the ETA's executive director up to $5,000 without going to the board. However, the purchases would only be made if the expense is not covered through El Paso County's grants and is a needed operational expense to support the mission of ETA. The proposed reasoning from going from 1,000 to 5,000 is just overall inflation has increased. When we look at the same period in 2024, particularly in the El Paso area, inflation's up by 4.2%. And then we would just make appropriate expenses through this purchasing card. Program oversight will still be through the Rio Grande Council of Governments acting as our fiscal agent. Regardless of our dollar expense, copies of the statement from the State of Texas Payment and Travel Card Program will continue to be brought before the Board of Directors monthly for final approval and scrutiny and questioning by the board. I'm happy to answer any questions on this action if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Ando. I did want to hear from the board on this. I know that we recently, feels like an eternity ago, but February was still this year, approved the $1,000 limit for Mr. Banales. And so I understand the need for efficiency for operations, and I think going with a P card makes sense. And joining these buy boards is also a good idea. The one thing I wanted, I'd like to hear feedback on all of it, but especially the increasing the limit. Mr. Banales, I know that you came and asked for that initial increase, so I'm not sure if you have any comments on.
The 5,000 is a good amount, really. $1,000 is a small amount, and having the ability to go up to 5,000 makes it a lot easier, more efficient. And it's all audited, reportable. It's all included in reports, financial reports. It's documented. If there's ever any questions, they can be addressed.
Pretty standard, I think. It's PNAS. So probably best practice, but it's pretty
I think some entities even have a higher amount, but 5,000 is a good place to start.
And I purposely set 5,000 just because our budget is small when you really think about it, and the lion's share of the expense is matching county's grants. So really, we shouldn't have a whole lot of expenses. And I'll give an example of an expense. We're participating in the, Anna, if you want to talk about the trunk or treat?
Yes, trunk or treat.
And we're spending about $200 for like decorations for the bus to participate in that event. So that's kind of where we would purchase those items, because you can't purchase promotional items under 2 CFR 200 with federal funding. So this is where we would have to purchase outside of the county's grants.
And Mr. Ando, just to note today, the only expenses that have been used for this purpose were to purchase ETA pins, which I forgot to wear today. I apologize. The lunch when we were doing the executive director search, and now the items for transit. So it's been in minimal use as of this.
And I know, Mr. Banales, we have your expenses that we also need to reimburse you for the printing costs and the design costs of the annual report. So those are the type of expenses we would use the P card for.
your their comments or questions. Lauren? I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Butler and a second by Ms. Carrillo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We can now move on to item 6C. Adoption of an investment policy for El Paso Transportation Authority. Mr. John Endo.
Okay, go. Yeah, okay.
Number 2.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the board, I'm requesting that this board adopt an investment policy for the El Paso Transportation Authority as we start building our financial capacity and we start the transition of grants from El Paso County and we receive Federal Transit Administration funds directly from the FTA. We're going to be obtaining large sums of monies to support our transit operations. And the purpose of having an investment policy would authorize presently the Rio Grande Council of Governments, but also future ETA financial staff to invest the funds in accordance with Texas state law, which is the Public Funds Investment Act of Texas Government Code Chapter 2256. With an increased interest amount that we can get from investing some of these funds will allow us to reinvest those interests into transit operations and continue to work hard to hold the line with member agencies' contributions to the limits of CPI because we're getting revenue streams from other sources. We envision that should the board approve this investment policy, we'll send staff to do the appropriate Public Investment Act training that's held by the University of North Texas, and that will give the board reports monthly on any investments that are done so that the board can see the value of the investments and be able to answer and staff be able to answer any questions about the investments that are occurring. I don't envision this will be starting immediately until we start getting the grants from TxDOT and FTA. So we'll probably see that occurring more in the latter part of 26. If you haven't answered any questions about this item, if there are any.
I just wanted to comment and say I think it's a very well put together policy, very familiar with investment policies. So I think you covered all the bases, and it's really good to have to be able to give ETA this tool. I'll temper that to say the state of Texas is very restrictive as far as what you can invest in. So it's really limiting that risk profile. So it's not going to return as much as you might have if you were a private investor or had a little bit more allowance to take on more risk. But it's still good to have, and it can probably at least help offset some of the cost of inflation year to year. So it's a very good tool for them to have.
Agree. Any other questions? Your motion.
Or I don't believe there's any action on this item. Is that correct, Mr. Ando?
There's action.
Okay.
Yes.
I move to approve.
Second.
To approve by Mr. Conde and a second by Mr. Bishop. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We can now move on to item 6G, discussion regarding ETA assets and for sale performance data presented by Mr. John Ando. And brief.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. This item is really to answer questions that I've heard from many of the members about what is the data that we get from the routes and services that ETA provides? Where are people coming from? And how are people utilizing the transit system? So working with our associate transportation planner, Rena Mirga, we put together a series of some spreadsheets to give you an illustrative perspective of how people are using ETA services. Keep in mind for the fixed route system, it's very high level. We do plan to do a more deeper dive by actually doing a survey where we're going to actually ask people, which jurisdiction do you live in? Then we'll come back before the board at a later date on how on that data. But I'll go over the high level of the spreadsheets and be happy to answer any questions that this board may have on the value that ETA provides to each of the member agencies. So if we look at page 643 of the board packet, if you're looking at the full packet, or 240, thank you. We added that Transdev contract, that's why. 240, yes. We start with ETA Paseo. Route 10 basically provides value to the town of Anthony, the village of Vinton, and the unincorporated areas. 32,704 people rode Route 10 last fiscal year. So about 19% of overall ETA Paseo's ridership is attributed to Route 10. Route 10 is the busiest route in the ETA Paseo system. Route 20 only benefits the unincorporated area. So 17,141 passenger trips were made. So that's about 10% of ETA Paseo's ridership. Route 30 had 29,979 passenger trips. That route benefits Horizon City and the city of Socorro. So about 17% of Route 30's trips benefited the ETA Paseo system. Route 31, which is a new route, benefits Horizon City and the unincorporated area. 15,308 passenger trips were made on that route, so about 9%. Route 40, 14,283 passenger trips were made, and that route benefits the city of Socorro, the town of Clint, and the unincorporated area, and that's about 8% of ETA Paseo's ridership. Route 50 had 9,915 passenger trips. About 5% was attributed to the ETA Paseo system, and that route benefits Socorro, San Elizario, and the city of San Elizario and the town of Clint. Route 84, which was previously operated by Sun Metro until December of 2024, had 14,563 passenger trips, and about 8.5% was attributed to the ETA Paseo system, which benefits Socorro, San Elizario, and Clint. When you add routes 50 and 84 collectively together, that's about 14.43% of the benefits of the Paseo system, since Route 50 assumed most of what Route 84 used to do. The Gold Route, which is operated by the New Mexico Department of Transportation, provided 35,763 passenger trips, which is about 21% of the ETA Paseo transit system. And that route benefited the city of El Paso, the town of Anthony, and then the city of Las Cruces, New Mexico. So everyone knows, a passenger trip means a person boarding the bus. So if I can board the bus 3 different times, I would be counted 3 different times. So it's not unique passengers, it's just based on the number of boardings on a per passenger basis. Before I move on to ETA access, I wanted to see, are there any questions from the board as relates to the benefits that the ETA Paseo system provides to each of the jurisdictions?
John, can you control by unique passengers?
It's very difficult to do. You can do a survey, but it's very costly, and it's still going to give an illustrative projection and not an actual projection.
And Jen, Senator was doing some public outreach that week, and we were at the different channels, and we had we're putting together like the summary of the comments from the people. We're advertising the Senator Rising, and we have several comments on Route 84. Previously, I used to send it to the director of the county. Now, would it be, you want me to send it to you? We just gather the information with the people, so maybe your people can contact them, and because we tell them they need to reach out to the county for that.
Yes.
Yeah, so I send it to you.
Yes, and I can work with them to analyze that and respond to those comments appropriately. And we can do that in conjunction with you as well.
And 50 is the route where it will be stopping in Socorro, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So
50 and 40 and 30.
And that began, was it 2 months ago?
October 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So these numbers may increase on those routes,
That's correct.
for the next year. But
Is the impact to Socorro included in here as far as, during the period when services were stopped?
Yeah, when we scroll down and look at the spreadsheet, you're gonna kind of see a dip on routes 30, 40, and 50 when the restrictions went into place. So my understanding from talking with Transdev that since the restrictions were lifted, people have been very grateful that they're able to now get the transportation, and we're starting to see the passenger trips trend back upwards again. All right, I'll move on to ETA access on pages 240 of your packet. And ETA access, I also gave you another sheet. I'm sorry, disregard that one. I'll actually talk about this verbally because I did not give you that sheet. But ETA access, this is based on eligible passengers that actually are registered with ETA access. 2 passengers are registered in the town of Anthony, 4 in the town of Clint, 16 in the town of Horizon City, 10 in the city of San Elizario, 47 in the city of Socorro, 10 in the village of Vinton, and then 57 in the unincorporated area, which translates to 146 total people registered for ETA access paratransit. About 1% in Anthony, 2% in Clint, 11% in Horizon City, 6% in San Elizario, 32% in Socorro, 6% in Vinton, and then 39% in the unincorporated area. I will also email you this that I was able to calculate today based on some data I got from Transdev. So from an illustrative purposes in the month of August, based on passenger trips made by the 146 people that are eligible for access, we had a total of 546 passenger trips made. 32 of those trips were made from people in Anthony, which is about 5.8%. 15 of those trips were made in the town of Clint, which is 2.7%. 0 Horizon City. 50 trips were made in San Elizario, which is about 9.1%. 327 trips were made in the city of El Paso, which is 59.89%. But I want to preface that this could mean that some of these trips were Socorro, Horizon City, and or unincorporated trips. I've asked Transdev to work with their developer to further break down like how those trips are being inputted in trapeze so we can get it by true jurisdiction. Because our interlocal agreement with Sun Metro allows us to take people from the county to the city or from the city to the county, but not to do city to city trips, because that's what Sun Metro Lift is for. But because I don't have data on the broken out for Socorro, Horizon City, and unincorporated trips, it can only be presumed that some of those trips are attributed to those 3 jurisdictions. 0 was reported for Socorro. 65 of those trips were made in the village of Vinton, so that's 11.9%, and then 57 of the trips were made in the unincorporated area, excluding some of the trips that could have been made in the Montana Vista area, so that's about 10.44%. So I'll give further information to the board after we can get more clarity from Transdev on that. Are there any questions about the ETA access data?
So two points, just a point of clarification for everyone's benefit on the interlocal. This table with the number of eligible passengers is very good because the interlocal stipulates the transit agency whose customers, whose eligible passengers, that entity is responsible for taking them anywhere, regardless of where it originates. The second thing is for next month, would you be able to superimpose on this table the projections that TTI had made for the ADA ridership? TTI provided that data, I think probably late summer 2023, just to see how accurate those projections are or how close we are to what the expected trajectory.
It's the summer of 2020.
I think that's when they first developed or made the first projections.
Yeah, I'll work with Brenna and TTI so we can put that together for you and for the board.
John, I think I know the answer to this question, I think, but just to, that's my thinking now. What's the primary reason why we can't track individual riders? If it's just rides.
Because that individual rider, like, it's easier to track it on access because it's a unique rider making multiple trips because we have 146 people who are eligible. And within that 146, 500, they made 546 trips. Right. So we can follow a user because it's like point to point.
Right.
On the fixed route system, however, I'll give you an example. If I start at my home in 5 points and I go to West Side and I take the 10 is going to count me once. And then if I get off in Westway, go visit a friend in Westway, and then I get back on the bus again later on that day, I'm now counted as twice. And then when I get back if I go to Anthony, Texas to go ride South Central, and then I go to New Mexico and then I come back, it's going to count me 3 times. But the system isn't going to know that I rode the bus 3 times.
Right.
So that's what makes it kind of difficult to track the unique rider. It's almost like, for lack of a better word, you have to put like those Apple iPod things or what AirTags, thank you, on me to really see how am I using the ETA system.
Yeah, it just seems like, it sounds like a lot of rides, but it's like if 2 people use it a whole lot, that would help. That would just help us understand the value. But I'm not saying that's what it is. It's just we have the same issue with justice system data. You might have one person with 10 cases, and do we track it by case or do we track it by individual? And I don't know it's quantities, but no, thank you.
Yeah, and the only reason that we can track access passengers is because they have to apply.
They have to apply, and then they have to make the reservation from point A to point B, and then point B to point A, and all that gets tracked in a database by that user.
Apply and be approved.
Right. So they can only use access if they're eligible.
Right now, you can track only the activity, like if a passenger has a monthly pass, the pass has a unique number, so the system can identify that, but not everybody buys it daily or so if you pay cash and things like that, and it was to do the same thing, it can tell you transfer from this route to this route and here, but it does, and it's not up to kind of for every rider.
Makes sense.
With the addition of that app, the Move It app, would there be able to be tracked a little bit more with that?
We can get people who have downloaded the app, statistics on that, but that's really the extent we'll be able to get. If they buy through token transit, we'll be able to know what passes they buy, but we wouldn't necessarily be able to know how many times they've used that pass on the system. And as Underlay gets further developed in San Elizario and Clint, we'll be able to track similar to Access users of the Underlay system because they would basically be boarding in Clint to San Elizario, going to a destination in those jurisdictions or to Socorro or to Mission Valley or El Paso Community College. So you'll also see similar data like we're presenting for Access, also for Underlay. All right, moving to the next mode is I passed this out to the board. This is the Vominos Fan Pool Program. And for the Vominos Fan Pool Program, I also put some information in the board packet just to kind of give a perspective of how people are using the Van Pool program. So the Van Pool program is basically user-driven. A user signs up with Enterprise. Once they're approved by Enterprise, they basically form a group or they join an existing group, and then we pay $500 per month per van to use that program. And we can count that as ridership to the transit system. So to understand the Vominos Van Pool program, there's a total of 12 van pools that had an origin or a destination within the El Paso city limits. There is 157 van pools that originated in the El Paso urbanized area. And of that, 38 of those vans traveled into New Mexico. Of the vans that operated in the rural area, there were 12 vans that solely operated in the rural area. 38 vans operated in the New Mexico area of the urbanized area. 117 vans originated from within the El Paso urbanized area to a destination outside of the urbanized area. 30 vans originated from inside the city of El Paso limits to a destination within the urbanized area. 88 vans originated within the city of El Paso to a non-urbanized, to the rural area. And 65 vans originated from the city of El Paso and commuted to a location within the state of New Mexico. Now, to further hone in on that, that's what I just passed out to you today. One of those vans originated in the town of Anthony. One of those vans originated in the town of Clint. This is illustrated to August of 2025. So these numbers are going to be a little bit different from what I wrote in the staff report. But 24 of those vans originated within El Paso. 102 of those vans originated within El Paso and stayed within El Paso. 10 of those vans originated in the unincorporated area, which one of those is Fathens, 8 is Fort Bliss, and 1 is Santa Teresa. 11 of those vans originated in Horizon City, and 3 of those vans originated in Socorro. So for the month of August, we had 152 vans. The van pool program ebbs and flows, but it hovers around the 150 van range. Van pool program is significant when it comes to federal funding because it generates additional revenue miles and additional passenger trips that benefits the El Paso urbanized area as well as the rural area, depending on the originating and termination points. Are there any questions about the Bominos Van Pool program? I should preface that this program is solely funded by El Paso County's contributions to ETA, and the members do not contribute to the Van Pool program.
Do we have a map of the termination points?
We can generate that with GIS.
Not just for these, but I also think for access and Bominos, it might be helpful thinking about like community services within the county to see where people are taking transit. So we can, if there are places where we can co-locate resources, have a better understanding of that. I imagine the van pools are used mostly for employment. That will help us, economic development, or like understand better where the commercial centers are where people are needing to take these kinds of modes of transportation.
We can work to put them together.
This is a program that unfortunately the public is not very well informed about, or a lot of individuals within El Paso, because when you think of 152 vans operating, that might represent 300, 400, 500 individuals who on that particular day, the van pool program didn't exist, were using their cars or their vans or their pickup trucks to go to and from work. And so this reduces the number of vehicles out there. That's part of the emphasis that the working with the MPO, because initially the MPO was involved in funding or developing or studying this whole process, and that led to the van pool program. So it's unfortunately, that people don't realize how important it is. It reduces congestion, it reduces pollution, and it's a good program throughout the entire county.
What's the annual cost to the city for that? The county.
Brenna, would you be able to advise on the costs that we're spending on the van pool program?
Still on mute. She's still on mute.
Still on mute.
Okay. It was 500 per van per month.
It's a subsidy, yeah. I can get that information and email that out to the board. So you're curious on how much the county is spending on the local match for the subsidy, correct?
To its point on messaging, that's a pretty significant, sounds like a pretty significant contribution.
Yes. And And I understand this program has been in operations going back to the early 2000s.
It actually evolved from the MPO, the County El Paso study in 1991, 92. That was one of the items that was promoted. But it takes time. And in the early 2000s, 2001 to above, funding began to be the CMAQ funding.
CMAQ funding, yes. Any other questions on the Banful program?
Any update?
The last piece of this is, you'll see in your packet is a series of charts, just showing you the ups and downs of passenger trips and passengers per hour for each of the LGC Paseo fixed routes. And then the handout that passed out to the board members relates to routes 84 and the few months that Route 84 operated in fiscal year 25. So I just asked that you just review that at your leisure. And I'll also be sending this information to the mayors of the jurisdictions, just since the mayors particularly were asking me about the data. And so at least they have the same information, and I'll copy each of the board members with that data request. And then if your jurisdiction has further questions about this data, or you want me to try to go more into detail, just please let me know, and we're happy to provide. I know this has been a long-standing request from many of the members, and I just want to make sure that we are providing the data that the members are looking for in regards to this effort.
I'm glad we're starting to capture this data now, as we go through a lot of these changes and transitions, and really put a lot of resources into making ETA more accessible, easier to use. I'm going to be interested in seeing if that makes a difference in ridership. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for handling your team programs together.
There will be no action in this item. Moving on to item 6H, discussion regarding the purpose and appointment of members to the Executive Committee for the El Paso Transportation Authority. Mr. Adams.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. This item was requested by Board Member Rimkus to be agendized for the board to discuss, but particularly the board in February of 24 created an executive committee, which 3 members that were appointed to the executive committee are no longer serving on this board. So the executive committee is presently dormant. On April 17 of 24, a proposed meeting schedule was adopted for the executive committee to meet. However, it is unknown by staff if the executive committee ever met, as we've not been able to identify any agendas, minutes documenting the meeting. February 26 was proposed to discuss the Sun Metro proposal that was reviewed by the executive committee. However, no action was taken. And now May of 21st of this year was proposed to take action regarding the appointment and structure of the executive committee. However, the item was deleted. Just from reviews of other public transit authorities that have executive committees, executive committee normally has the chair, the vice chair, another board member, which could be a voting or an ex officio member. A quorum of the executive committee normally consists of the majority of the members. Normally, the committee would act in the absence of a board meeting occurring. They may exercise any and all powers vested in the board in respect to the operations in the normal course of business. They may review and provide oversight on board rules, structures, agency policies, legislative planning, government relations, and communication strategies. They may also evaluate like system-wide performance program strategies and budgets, interview candidates for an executive director position, act in the executive director's absence if there is no executive director, and review the executive director's performance. And then all actions of the executive committee are normally reported at the next available board of directors meeting. So I'll bring this item before the board for direction on how you like to go with an executive committee. And then we can bring back the direction at the next board meeting on appropriate action to be taken. Mr. Richness, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think you provided a good summary, and I know the board, I think it contemplated at different stages what that would look like. And it was basically meant to give the board a little bit more nimble ability to work on agenda items and also consider serious proposals that were coming up where it was difficult to get quorum of the full board or in between regular meetings. So it kind of digest some of that and get it ready for formal board review much more efficient. But with board membership changes, and I don't think there were, I think when it was discussed originally, it was just appointing individuals as opposed to maybe specific positions. So I think, you know, at least the chair or vice chair and the executive director are the two key components of memberships.
And this is where the documentation comes into play because there were some meeting of the quote executive committee addressing some of the issues over the last year. I wasn't a member of it, but the only thing was that unfortunately we didn't do a good job in recording the discussions and recommendations that were coming out of it. Is that addressing the findings, the executive committee?
There's nothing in the bylaws, but it doesn't preclude this board from creating, because the bylaws does allow this board to create.
Yeah. Well, it says that when you say the executive committee, I mean, that has a higher standing than a board committee that's an ad hoc committee. And I wonder if possibly it should be addressing the bylaws.
Well, it seems like the powers you were describing are from the executive. Just have to be present.
Yeah, I would think so. May I ask, Nick, do you have any comment on the executive committee language and bylaws?
I do not. Or did you want me to explain reasoning behind?
Sure. Yeah, for the board's information.
All right, I'm having trouble with my camera. I don't know if it's coming on. Well, that notwithstanding, this is just to kind of clean up some of the, well, actually not clean up. This is just an addition that really firms up the requirements, especially to explain why you would go into executive session and what the limitations are. A couple of the additions to the end, you'll notice involve matters of security.
No, I'm sorry, Nick. This is about executive committee, not executive session.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like if we were to form an executive committee and adding, like having them have some of the powers of the board in between board meetings, is that something that should be added in the bylaws, or what's your take on boards having executive committees from a legal perspective?
You know, I'm always kind of cautious of vesting powers of the board into an executive committee. I would really prefer, give me some time to run it down. I can circulate an opinion just so we, just to make sure that you have a fully informed decision. I don't know. I mean, my sense would be no, but if that's something the board's interested in, let me make sure that it's something we can actually do and move forward with it from there, if that's okay.
I think it's important to have the committee. What exactly you task that committee to do is probably the real question. But if the executive committee meets, for example, monthly, it gives you a chance to vet agenda items in advance. If you need that in this board, I don't know that you do. But it's mostly to focus the discussion and get ready for the board. Whether you vest the powers, and it's probably a different level, which it's up to you.
We do that already. We meet prior to the board meeting to go over the agenda. So it makes sense. And there are, I think, special circumstances. I know through the hiring process, we had a few board members meet regularly for a few months. And so I think it makes sense. But again, just being able to have that flexibility and make sure that it's focused be important. So we can come back with some ideas for next month. Is that okay? Mr. Rodriguez?
Oh, yes.
Madam Chairman, would you like maybe perhaps a subset of some board members to work with me on crafting some information for this board to consider at next month's meeting regarding this matter?
Board members.
I mean, I could definitely help with some perspectives, or I can investigate what other transit authorities do with executive committees and then just share samples from that.
Chairwoman Butler, if I may, Ms.
Mayorga, she is on the line. She was having issues being able to unmute, but she's available. She just wanted to let you know.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Is it okay to go back to make sure you can answer the question about the van pool cost?
If she has the answer, yes. And I think, Alexis, were you able to unmute right now? Okay.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I apologize. I could not unmute earlier. And you asked John, what's the operating cost for the van pool program?
Yes.
I went off of direct payments, so invoicing and what we're paying for the program, which is $915,675.
How much of that was general fund subsidy from the county? Would you know?
I would not. That would be, I believe, a Bianca question since she processes the invoicing.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Rena.
Oh, no problem. Apologies again.
Okay, we'll come back with some suggestions and legal opinion on how we can, what next steps we need to take to establish that executive committee.
Will be no action on this item. Moving on to item 6I, discussion, direction, and recommendation to El Paso County Commissioners Board regarding the electric bus pilot project with Texas Department of Transportation. Mr. John Endo.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. So the board's aware, I believe this has been discussed before, but the transit program is part of a electric bus pilot program with the Texas Department of Transportation. And a grant agreement has been executed with TxDOT as well as recently an amendment. And the purpose of the pilot is to purchase 4 cutaway buses and 7 chargers, which 5 of those chargers are level 2 chargers and 2 of those chargers are level 1 DC fast chargers. It is funded through FTA funds 5339, which is bus and bus facilities discretionary. And then the state's providing a match of rural transit funds for a project total of about $2 million. Recently, we did add an additional $64,000 of 5339B funds to increase the project's total. The project has plans to basically purchase 4 cutaway buses that are 12 passenger. And the intent was to use these vehicles on routes 10 and 50, 10, the Anthony Vinton area, 50, Socorro, Clint, San Elizario. However, the chargers would be stationed at the West Side Transit Center. El Paso County Purchasing has issued 4 purchase orders, 1 to ABC companies for 4 cutaways, 3 of them to Crawford Electric Supply for basically the 7 chargers. However, this project has been through many delays and issues since implementation. Some of these challenges include the identification of a site for the chargers. We finally settled at the West Side Transit Center that Sun Metro owns, and that's covered through an interlocal agreement to have the chargers there. The buses have not been approved by the Larson Transportation Institute for Bus Research and Testing Center, which is in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And in order for us to pay for these buses with federal funds, it has to have a pass rating from this bus testing facility. As of the writing of this report, we've not had a determination, and we've been trying to reach the vendor multiple times to get information. They've not participated in meetings to give us project updates until I had to send basically an email saying that if you don't respond, we're going to start the process to terminate your purchase order. So I do have a response from them, and we're digesting that. That goes into the next one about lack of responsiveness from ABC companies. There's been cost increases because of delays in implementation of this project, hence why on Monday we did go to the County Commissioner's Court to do an amendment to add the additional federal funds that TxDOT has provided. The big one is the operational challenges. As you know, it's easy to get capital money to build things, but there's always the cost to operate it. And in order to make this project work, Transdev will need to operate from 2 locations. The Sun Metro Maintenance Facility in downtown, as well as the West Side Transit Center. The bus operator would need to travel between the two locations, which is about 17 miles round trip or 15 minutes each way. In order to do any maintenance, washing, and cleaning of the buses, a minimum of 2 transit employees are going to be needed to shuttle the vehicles back and forth between the maintenance facility and the Westside Transit Center. We would park these buses at the Westside Transit Center because that's where the chargers would be housed. We were not able to put chargers at the San Francisco Avenue location, nor we did look at other county properties, and working with County Public Works, we weren't able to identify any suitable locations to put the chargers. At the present time, there are 9 cutaway vehicles that meet FTA requirements that we could potentially purchase from, and they're shown in the staff report. It's not known if all of these vehicle types are still available. We'll have to do further research. We are aware that Lightning E-Motors did file for bankruptcy, and originally TxDOT was going to use their vehicle as the pilot cutaway. So basically that eliminates 2 vehicles that are able to be purchased. There is a new vehicle that's been proposed by a European firm. It's a minibus. It does have an FTA waiver and is available to purchase with FTA funds. However, TxDOT has stressed that they would rather use cutaways and vans for this effort and not necessarily buses. It should be noted that these buses have a range of 90 miles and before they would require recharging. Route 10 is our busiest route and the ETA Paseo network. And if we operated this cutaway on that route, basically there are 14 round trips that route operates, and they each operate 32 miles. So the bus would need to be traded out 5 times in order to run the route as it stands. It's also unknown if the bus can have standees. So if we exceed 12 passenger trips on Route 10, which Route 10 generally has more than 12 passenger trips, passengers will be left behind and have to wait for the next Route 10, which could be 75 to 90 minutes later. If we trade out a bus, we're going to lose 20 minutes to do the trade out because the bus operator would have to connect the bus to the charger, get into a new bus, pre-trip that bus, and then pull out of the parking area to start the route at the Westside Transit Terminal. Presently, we have a 5-minute layover at the Westside Transit Center. If we put it on Route 50, we would have to do a 41-mile round trip deadhead, which means that we only have 49 miles available for revenue service. A round trip on Route 50 is 23 miles, which means we can only do 2 round trips before we have to deadhead the bus back to Westside Transit Center, trade out the bus, and then go back down to the Mission Valley Transit Center to start the route. In the end, using these cutaways are going to cost us more money than it's worth. And I'm concerned that we're not going to get the appropriate capacity to use these on the ETA Paseo system. So we started discussions with TxDOT about changing the manufacturer and the intent of the use of the vehicles should we continue with this project. While TxDOT is not supportive of using a transit bus, they're open to us using electric vans. So my recommendation to this board for consideration is, one, that we would work with TxDOT and county purchasing to terminate the purchase order with ABC bus companies due to a lack of past bus testing report. Work with TxDOT to purchase a Ram ProMaster low floor electric vans through RO Bus Sales and the Nevada State Purchasing Contract, or any mutually acceptable bus manufacturing contract that has completed its bus testing that we can use on ETA access and undelay services. And then should the action not be determined viable with TxDOT, terminate our participation on this pilot and just return the grant funds to TxDOT so that they can use the funds elsewhere. Happy to answer any questions about the staff report if there are any.
So if you are able to consider vans, we can share with you, we purchase vans for our airport. So if we can help with that, we can share. We bought ours off of co-op, so I guess that'd be helpful if you want to do that. And we have the pricing too, so share all that with you. My main concern is I think it's probably been about 8 or 9 months since we last had any discussions on the actual chargers. And I'm not sure who's overseeing the A&E firm who's handling the plans, if that's the state, if that's county.
It's a Hatch Hatch's TxDOT's consultant in managing this pilot.
Correct. So the county staff would, or, ETA staff now is kind of in the middle, not able to make direct impact on with the consultant, because the consultant's working for TxDOT, correct?
Correct. But we've issued the purchase orders.
Okay.
So we're making the expenses utilizing the funds, since the funds have been allocated to us.
So you're paying Hatch.
We're not, no, TxDOT's paying Hatch, but we're paying the vendors to provide the materials for Hatch to
Okay. So
construct.
the concern that I have is that there's made it very clear along the way on the planning phase that they had to apply for city building permits, get our plans reviewed by some metro of the city. Haven't seen anything yet through a formal process. We've had a lot of discussions, but nothing formal. And that process isn't like from today till tomorrow. It could take months to get all of those approved. And so I didn't get the feeling that Hatch was gonna go through with that or not. Haven't heard anything on that or not. So I think it would be good to make sure and catch up with them to find out where they stand with the city permitting and planning process.
Jesus, if you're on the line, are you able to answer the question that Carl brought up?
Yeah, of course. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, so Carl, on that one, we were having delays on the survey as we had our first survey group that did not assist us with it, like it was lacking on time frames. So what we had to do is we had to get pricing for 3 other survey companies. We got those survey prices and TxDOT approved with them. So now it was us to decide who we're gonna do the survey. And we're just waiting for the approval of the PO so they could go do the survey here locally at your facility. I instructed that surveyor to contact you if they need to go to the site whenever they get that PO. And it's Conde Inc. survey. I believe Conde does a lot of work for us in the planning development side. So I think they know the process of getting the permits and things like that. So that's what we're waiting for, is just the PO.
So it'll be county staff applying for the building permits?
I believe if it's gonna be myself or Conde, our survey company. I will have to discuss that with her. I think the contract, or not the contract, but the work order that she put out for us didn't specify any permits, so it might be myself.
Yeah, it's a rigorous process, so I just want to make sure we're aware of that. That's time to get to the construction.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jesus.
And I think you bring up a very good point, Carl, too, because what had happened to me in Hawaii, which was before I got there, was the buses came ahead of the Chargers.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this today, but I still talk to the administrator who took my spot. The buses are still sitting unused because Hawaii County's permitting processes are the worst. And they're still the mass transit agency is still trying to work with the county's planning department and building department to get the appropriate permits to install those chargers. So I left there in March of 23, and here we are in 25. So the bus has been sitting for 2 years. I don't want the same thing to happen here.
And of course, we have the added layer of the electric company and getting the easement completed, the transformers installed. So a lot of lead time before. So anyway.
Yes, sir.
I think we also need to really analyze this. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we would love to have electric vehicles as part of our transit system. We know Commissioner Leon was very, very passionate about that. But there are limitations to making it work, as Mr. Ando outlined. I think about the school districts that have gotten grants for electric school buses, and they're having a lot of issues with those. And it's mostly because of how far they have to drive and how it just doesn't work for long distances, which is what we do at ETA. We take people long distances. So anyway, what do you recommend as the next step, Mr.?
I was gonna say, I think another issue that we have, Commissioner Butler, is the lack of infrastructure around the county and around the city, that we just can't go anywhere and plug in. We have to have our source. So I think that's another, form of a hurdle that we have to go through. And until we all have more infrastructure in the county and the region, I think these projects will be better. And right now, I think that's the hurdle that we have to go through. That's my 2 cents.
Have there been, I don't know, do they develop good?
Not in the cutaway in the van market now. Definitely in the transit bus market. And transit, and that's what kind of TxDOT and Hatch told us, is that the transit bus is proven and they don't necessarily want to use the grant funds to use a proven product. They want to experiment with something that's unproven, hence the cutaways and the vans. I've experienced using electric vans. I used them in Burlington, North Carolina, and Redding, California, and also in Hawaii, because we bought a little garage charger for that. And the electric vans work great. They work perfect for paratransit operations, because at least you know when you're giving your paratransit trips how far the van's going to travel. And you can actually schedule trips so that the vans can come back like within 80 miles and then use other vehicles if need be. But the fixed route side, unless you have the right number of range, it's going to cost. And if transit bears the cost, that cost is going to be passed back on to us.
And I think that's the key, right? So this is a pilot project. It's supposed to test, these kinds of capabilities. But that's the analysis I think we have to make, is how much is it going to cost us to prove, yeah.
And if we're going to participate in a pilot, which I believe pilots are great to have, we need to make sure the pilot's affordable and makes operational and financial sense for us to join. Because if it's a pie in the sky pilot, I don't think this organization is set up appropriately to take on that risk right now, especially being new. And maybe a better established rural transit district that has capacity to troubleshoot risks should take on a pilot like this.
And we initiated our pilot in paratransit. So we do have the trip data, but it's still, we're factoring one EV. You need 2 EVs to equal 1 standard.
Yep.
So we're really now maintaining a hybrid fleet where you have to maintain electric and standard. So it puts a significant burden on, and you try to deal with that.
And are they more expensive than regular?
Well, there is supposedly a lot of cost savings on the fuel based on the projections that they work with on the electric company. So you can see a lot there, but I think there's the hidden cost in the operations side.
I'm almost done.
Yes, I know we're almost done. I have to catch now right now. So
I guess I'll just ask the board, the recommendation I'd ask from the board's direction is we'll continue to have discussions with TxDOT on the proposed recommendation I put in the staff report. If the board's supportive of that, I'll operate on that notion. If TxDOT comes back and says they don't want to pursue what we're recommending, then I'll start the process to make an action to the commissioner's court to terminate our participation in the project.
Can you bring it back to us before we take that step to commissioner's court?
I can do that.
Okay.
So I can come back either in November or December.
Yes.
Does that work for the board? Okay.
No action. Move on to item 6J. Receive a report from the Executive Director regarding El Paso Transportation Authority staff activities. Mr. Ando.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, my staff report is included in the board packet. I just want to add just quick high level. We're having productive conversations with Sun Metro on various partnerships, interlocal agreement for fuel, Sun Metro's full participation on ETA, lease agreements, the interlocal agreement for federal funds so that we can become a direct recipient. So I'll continue to keep the board apprised on those discussions, and you'll see some items coming before the board about that in the future. Sun Metro is going through Sun Metro Rising, where they're going to restructure their transit system in 2026. So we've sent staff to some of their open houses just to understand the impacts of the ETA system. Very positive changes to the Sun Metro system. I think it's going to provide huge benefit to ETA with them making this restructuring and make it actually faster for people to get across the city of El Paso. We met with Sun Metro yesterday about Route 84 reconciliation. We do have an understanding. We should be seeing some bills for Route 84 coming shortly. And then I'll bring further details about that at a future board meeting, as well as we'll also need to go to commissioner's court to identify how we're going to pay for some of these Route 84 costs. I'll be going to a leadership training November 5 and 7 through TxDOT in Austin, Texas. I got appointed to participate in that leadership academy. Thank you. The El Paso MPO did meet about bylaw changes. The minor was tabled, and I believe that this will be coming forward in a future meeting. So I'll update the board on how that comes about. We met with FTA and the city of Socorro jointly with FTA to pursue direct recipient status. FTA would like both us and Socorro to work together to pursue the direct recipient status at the same time so that it makes it easier for them to set us both up as direct recipients. And we're also both working in conjunction with Sun Metro on their service expansion policy. So it's a collaborative effort so that ultimately we both would be able to get the direct recipient status and then the appropriate allocation of funds to both Socorro as well as ETA. We did do the changes on October 1 as it relates to removing of restrictions from Socorro. Routes 30, 40, and 50 are now serving bus stops in Socorro. And then we also launched ETA Underlay in San Elizario and Clint. And so far, people are interested. We have some limited use, but we're doing active promotion of this program to make sure people in those jurisdictions are aware that they now have door-to-door microtransit service. We are getting ready to do service changes on routes 10 and 20, just to realign the routes to serve some bus shelters that were constructed, and then add Sunday service to Route 10, so it's equivalent to the Sunday services that we have throughout the county. We are now in Google Maps and the Move It app, so folks can now be able to track our buses and plan their trip utilizing the Google Maps trip planner or the Move It app trip planner. And we're in discussions about adding us in Apple Maps. So if you see little bus icons in jurisdictions outside of the city of El Paso, those are our bus stops. And lastly, the audit is almost done. You'll see that at your next month's meeting. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Very comprehensive.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Hope you know action in this item. We can move on to item 6K, receipt for Board of Transit's operation of the month of September 2025, presented by Ms. Sylvia Baltazar. She was not able to be here, so we have Ms. Jennifer Garcia.
So I have here the executive summary of the primary activities for the month of September. For preventable accidents, we have 0. Non-preventable accidents, we also had 0. We had 1 non-preventable incident. Our performance for on-time performance for Pittsburgh was at 91%. The paratransit on-time performance was 95.83. Our rides per hour for paratransit is at 0.88. Our ridership for Pittsburgh is at 9,658. And then for the ridership for paratransit, 547. Also, we do have 133 clients inside of our service area. We have 13 outside of the service area, which combined is a total of 146. For the preventative maintenance is 23 completed at 100%. We have 28 fixed route drivers, 8 paratransit drivers, and we do not have any driver's positions open for fixed route or paratransit. We are fully staffed, and that concludes our report.
Thank you for that. Last item.
There will be no action in this item. We're moving on to item 6L, review long-range calendar of agenda items for El Paso Transportation Authority and El Paso County Commissioners Court. And Mr. Evan.
My report's in the board packet. Are there any questions about the long-range calendar?
I was just making a note to myself, John, that your 6-month evaluation will be in December.
I'm sorry, that's time.
I know. Can you add that to the calendar and maybe work with my team to make sure that we're preparing for that internally. And I'll have to revisit our discussion about the executive director evaluation 6 and 1. I think we did say an executive committee would do that. So there you go. Thank you. That's great.
One thing I just want to add too, if that's really quickly, is that we're coming into the holidays. We meet on the 4th Wednesday of the month. November and December is going to basically be, for November is going to be Thanksgiving. The day before, it's going to be the day before Thanksgiving. And then for December, the county's going to be closed. And county staff are not going to be available for 2 weeks. I'd like to see, is the board open to us moving the meeting to the first Thursday in December and combine the November and the December meeting together.
At the end of the week is Thursday.
First Thursday, sorry, excuse me, the first Wednesday in December.
December 3rd.
December 3rd, thank you.
Same time.
Same time.
No November meeting.
No November meeting and no December meeting, and we'll just have a joint November-December meeting, December 3rd.
That would conflict with MPO's technical and feedback.
Oh, when is feedback meeting?
First Wednesday.
Oh, what time?
1:30.
Oh, second,
The Tuesday?
or the Tuesday, yeah, maybe
Or
December 2.
or did you mean the second Wednesday?
I'm gonna go to either December 10 or Tuesday, December 2.
If the second is.
Mr. Andrew, I can pull
You
the,
can pull.
I can pull the board after this meeting and we can give possible dates.
That'll be perfect. That's all we got?
Okay, great meeting. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Yeah, but it's everyone else. At the next board meeting, I'd like to send the status of the board regarding the regional planning committee. Funded by TechStop. We're in the process of working on the regional plan for the period of 2027 to 2031. It involves the metro, county, the various municipalities. So I think it would be a good time to share that information with the board.
Well, I've got presentations for the agenda.
Calendar.
Commissioner Miller, can we just get a motion for adjournment?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second. So we have a motion, a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.